The Raw after Mania is usually one of the best editions of Raw in a calendar year. With a ruckus crowd, a carnival-esque atmosphere, and a WrestleMania hangover, it's one of those special occasions when you're guaranteed to have fun. And WWE pulls out a lot of stops to appease the fans traveling around the world for the biggest event of the year in professional wrestling. It is now almost a tradition for the company to introduce new superstars to the main roster, either from NXT or bring back former stars who left the promotion to ply their trade elsewhere. This year, we witnessed the high-profile return of former ECW Champion Bobby Lashley, who was at one point expected to become WWE Champion. Lashley's return also comes at an opportune time, with WWE looking to find new opponents for Brock Lesnar. However, there are a few things the promotion doesn't want the fans to remember about Lashley. My name is John, and in this video we give you 10 things WWE wants you to forget about this superstar. When Lashley was let go about 10 years back by the WWE, the superstar stirred the pot regarding the possible reason by venting his frustrations online. While it's common for stars to keep the fans updated about their status in the company, Lashley did more than just give the fans a heads up on his departure. Bobby would post on his website that he parted ways with the organization before going on to say he would not return to the company. Moreover, the chiseled superstar implied that the focus within the organization did not want him to succeed, claiming that evil had finally won. The circumstances surrounding the firing of his then-girlfriend Crystal Marshall further complicated the already strained relationship between Lashley and WWE, and this was enough for both parties to go their separate ways. Bobby also has had a complicated relationship with Michael Hayes, who remains Vince's right-hand man in the company. His physique and mean mug should immediately send chills down the spine of Lashley's opponents, and this was the original idea behind Vince McMahon wanting to make Bobby WWE's biggest star. Lashley became Vince's pet project, as the chairman wanted to build ECW around him. However, the daunting superstar was soft-spoken and his delivery was less than convincing. In fact, he once delivered a line that has since become a meme, when he called Finlay a bastard. Instead of sounding menacing, Bobby's delivery left the fans chuckling, and the superstar was never truly able to make the fans forget his gaffe. Similar to Lesnar's now infamous shriek, Lashley's promo calling Finlay a bastard has been immortalized, and WWE would desperately want the fans to forget about Lashley's promo skills, and would be better off sticking with him having a mouthpiece. WWE has sometimes made it a point to never mention other wrestling organizations on their broadcast. There are certain exceptions, such as that time when Cena insinuated that he would go to the other company if fired from WWE. However, this week's Raw witnessed WWE openly taking shots at Impact Wrestling, with Kurt Angle telling Owens and Zayn that there were openings in TNA, saying that Vince wouldn't want the WWE fans to know that his pet project and the one superstar he wanted to mold into WWE's biggest face left him high and dry and went to Impact Wrestling of all places. Lashley became a multiple-time world champion in Impact Wrestling before eventually signing with WWE once again. There are a few things a man of Vince McMahon's stature wouldn't want to admit, and one of those things is to remind himself and the fans that one of his biggest investments went to Impact Wrestling, and did very well for himself on top of that. If we all lived in Vince McMahon's world, we'd probably never hear the end of his genetic jackhammer. How Brett screwed Brett, watching scantily clad women pleasing the boss, and most importantly watching Vince and Kennedy McMahon run for president of the United States of America. Unfortunately for Vince and the WWE, they still have to perform within the boundaries of what is acceptable in the society. With WWE distancing themselves from Hulk Hogan, the company made it fairly obvious that they want to keep themselves away from any controversy, which brings us to Lashley's greatest claim to fame. At WrestleMania 23, Lashley faced Umaga with the future President of the United States in his corner. Since then, Bobby and Trump have had nothing but good things to say about one another. Lashley has even defended Trump. The Donald has been divisive to say the least so far during his presidency. There's a reason why Vince McMahon hasn't used his close relationship with Trump to push his product, and would hope that the fans won't remember what transpired at Mania 23. In 2006, it was made clear that Vince wanted to push Lashley. The chairman inserted himself into the program in a bid to make Bobby the biggest star of the company at the time. In the past, Vince worked wonders with the likes of Steve Austin, The Rock, and while Lashley certainly had the looks to strike fear in the hearts of his opponents, he really didn't have the mic skills or the charisma that separated the Austins and The Rocks from the rest of the pack. Needless to say, Bobby couldn't connect with the WWE audience. and while a rocket was still stuck to his back, he was launched into orbit. He fell well short of what the company expected of him. In a sense, Lashley's push was similar to Reigns over the past few years, with the only difference being Lashley was greener than grass on the microphone, and his ability to form a bond with the audience was non-existent. However, Lashley has returned as a seasoned vet, and one would hope that he does much better the second time around. December to Dismember was supposed to be Lashley's biggest moment. Instead, it turned out to be one of the worst events put on by WWE. Its ramifications were so dire that Heyman was sent home before the show, and Heyman legitimately quit afterwards, with tears in his eyes watching his baby being beaten and battered by the McMahons, and the last remnants of the old ECW went down in flames. It was also during this pay-per-view that Vince reportedly told Heyman that he wanted to push Lashley, and everyone else there to merely put him over. As it turned out, the fans hated the show, and with CM Punk getting eliminated, the one saving grace WWE had to salvage, the pay-per-view was gone. Lashley was supposed to be unveiled as WWE's next great force, but with December to Dismember doing just 90,000 pay-per-view buys, McMahon's efforts to push Lashley had backfired. The chairman put the blame on Heyman, but he wouldn't want the fans to remember just how horrendous the pay-per-view truly was. Pro wrestling and MMA have always been closely intertwined. The likes of Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey have proved the stars can make a successful transition, and Lashley, who is currently signed to Bellator MMA, is one of the biggest names in the second largest MMA promotion on the planet. WWE and UFC have set aside their differences in the past and even worked together. In fact, Lesnar is expected to compete inside the Octagon sometime this year. And it seems as though Vince might even be somewhat indebted to Dana White for allowing Ronda to sign with WWE, saying that, as inevitable as it is, Lesnar and Lashley's careers have been compared and analyzed over the past decade. While Lesnar was a former UFC heavyweight champ, Lashley had to start his MMA career from scratch, something the WWE management wouldn't want the fans to know. Also, considering the fact that WWE doesn't have a working relationship with Bellator MMA, there's a good chance they wouldn't want to mention the company on their broadcast, taking the importance away from Lashley's achievements in mixed martial arts. In the past, getting into a feud with Vince himself meant the chairman took a special liking to the superstar, and would do anything in his power to put him over. It worked wonders for the likes of Austin, Mankind, and The Rock, but with Lashley the entire angle lacked originality, and the fans didn't care much about the rivalry. For the majority of 2007, Vince McMahon feuded with then ECW Champion, and after a series of unsuccessful attempts, Lashley finally got the better of Vince at One Night Stand. However, it was far from the validation and reaction Lashley would have expected from the fans. Vince usually makes sure that he puts on a good match, but even the chairman couldn't save this bout from being a snooze fest. It was obvious from the outset that the fans weren't interested, and by the end of the match, that did not change. One of Lashley's signature moves has been his devastating spear. While other stars have used the spear in the past, no one makes it look more effective than Lashley, with his enormous shoulder and traps drilling into the gut of his opponents. However, with Roman Reigns currently using the spear as his finisher, Lashley would likely use a different move to end his matches. In fact, Bobby took Elias out with a delayed vertical suplex on Raw, which could very well be his new finisher. With WWE's continuous efforts to put Reigns over, they wouldn't want the fans to remember Lashley executing the spear in a more devastating fashion. Given WWE's stance on bullying and their efforts to inspire kids through storylines, an example being the culmination of Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss's feud with Nia winning the Raw Women's title, WWE wouldn't want the fans to know that Lashley's pay-per-view debut saw the star forcing Simon Dean to shove cheeseburgers down his gullet. Over the past few decades, WWE has created role models that young fans can look up to and even idolize. While Hogan asked the fans to eat their vitamins and drink their milk, Lashley forced a fitness guru to swallow nearly 2 dozens of cheeseburgers. That might not be the kind of message the company wants to send. It's also just kinda sick, and I don't know, it's hard to relate to another human that likes shoving cheeseburgers down someone else's throat. And these were 10 things WWE is going to want you to forget about Bobby Lashley. I hope you're all having an amazing day, and thank you so much for watching Wrestling Hub, and as always, I will see you later with more wrestling videos.